Captain Ethan Ralston leaned against the railing of his small spacecraft, watching the swirling gases of Veyron 7's lower atmosphere. The planet's sprawling trade cities were a kaleidoscope of lights, metal towers, and hovering ships. To the untrained eye, it was a place of opportunity, a hub where merchants and travelers met to trade goods from across the galaxy. But Ethan knew better. Beneath the glittering surface, danger and greed were always lurking. He had come to Veyron 7 on a routine mission, pick up rare minerals needed for a distant colony. But rumors had reached him about a darker secret, a slave market operating in the shadowed alleys of the city. Ethan had always been a man who stood for what was right, even if it meant bending the rules or putting himself in danger. And the thought that someone or something might be suffering under chains simply because they were different did not sit well with him. His ship touched down quietly on the outskirts of the city, where the neon lights faded into darkness. The market was hidden in an abandoned industrial sector, guarded by drones and armed men who showed no mercy to those who disobeyed. Ethan crouched behind a rusted cargo container, surveying the area with sharp eyes. He was not here to fight everyone. His plan relied on speed, surprise, and strategy. Through a narrow opening in the warehouse wall, he saw them, rows of cages filled with creatures of every kind. Most were humanoid, but there were also beings with multiple limbs, translucent skin, and strange glowing patterns. His heart sank at the sight of fear and despair in their eyes. But it was one of the captives who caught his attention immediately. She was small, no taller than a human 12-year-old, with hair that shimmered like silver in the dim light. Her skin had a faint lavender tint, and her eyes, Ethan had never seen anything like them. They were large and luminescent, like twin orbs of starlight, filled with fear yet somehow strong. He had no idea what species she was, but something in the way she held herself told him she was intelligent, courageous, and resilient. Her name, he would later learn, was Lyra. Ethan's mind raced. A frontal attack would be suicidal. He needed a plan. Moving carefully, he pulled a small device from his pocket. It was a jammer capable of temporarily disabling the drones patrolling the area. With a flick of his wrist, the device hummed to life. One by one, the drones fell silent, their lights blinking out. He had only a few minutes before backup would arrive. He slipped inside the warehouse, keeping to the shadows. The captives stirred, sensing the unusual quiet, but fear kept them frozen. Ethan crept closer to Lyra's cage. She noticed him immediately, her wide eyes filled with caution. He crouched down to her level, keeping his voice low and calm. "Hey," he whispered. "I'm here to help. My name is Ethan. I'm going to get you out of here." Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly, studying him. She didn't speak, but the faint tilt of her head suggested she understood him. Ethan smiled gently. Trust had to be earned, even in a crisis. Using a small tool, Ethan worked quickly on the cage lock. The metal clicked open and the door swung inward. Lyra hesitated, glancing at the other captives. But Ethan held out his hand, patient and calm. "It's okay. You're safe now." For a long moment she did not move. Then, with cautious steps, she approached him. Her hands were small, delicate but strong, and she clutched his sleeve as he guided her out of the cage. The sound of approaching guards broke the tense silence, snapping Ethan back into full alert. "Come on," he urged, pulling her toward the back exit. Shadows moved rapidly across the warehouse floor. Men armed with energy pistols and cybernetic enhancements. Ethan's pulse quickened. He had to think fast. He tossed a smoke grenade ahead of them, creating a thick, rolling cloud that obscured their movements. Lyra coughed but kept close, trusting him completely. He led her through narrow corridors, dodging patrols and avoiding security cameras. Every step was calculated, every movement precise. Finally, they reached a service exit that led to an alley outside. Ethan paused for a moment, listening. The guards were still inside, confused by the smoke. He motioned for Lyra to follow him. Together, they slipped into the shadows, moving toward his waiting ship. Once aboard, Ethan sealed the doors and activated the engines. The ship lifted off smoothly, leaving the industrial sector behind. Lyra stared out the viewport at the shrinking city, her large eyes reflecting a mix of awe and fear. Where are we going?" she asked in a soft voice, her accent strange but understandable. "Somewhere safe," Ethan replied. "You're free now. You don't have to be afraid anymore." Lyra's gaze lingered on him, and for the first time a hint of relief appeared in her expression. Thank you," she said quietly. Ethan gave a small nod, but he knew their journey was only beginning. Lyra had been through horrors he could barely imagine, and the galaxy was not always kind to those who were different. He needed to earn her trust, teach her how to survive, and protect her from the threats that would follow. The next few hours passed in silence, punctuated by the low hum of the ship's engines. Lyra watched everything carefully, occasionally asking questions about the stars, the planets they passed, and the strange symbols displayed on the ship's control panels. Ethan answered patiently, sensing that she was curious, intelligent, and eager to understand this new world. As night fell on the outer edge of the planet, Ethan prepared a small meal. Lyra sat across from him, hesitant but hungry. She examined the food with careful hands before taking a bite. Ethan smiled. Even in simple acts like this, trust was growing between them. "Why, did you help me?" Lyra asked finally, her voice trembling slightly. Ethan looked at her, considering his answer. "Because no one deserves to be treated like that. It doesn't matter where you come from or what you look like. Everyone deserves freedom." Lyra's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, and she looked away for a moment, overwhelmed by emotion she didn't fully understand. Ethan reached across the table and gently placed a hand near hers. "You're safe now. I promise." For the first time since he rescued her, Lyra allowed herself to relax. She leaned slightly closer, not out of obligation, but because she felt a connection forming, something beyond fear and survival. Ethan sensed it too. This was the beginning of a bond that would carry them through dangers they could not yet imagine. Hours later, as the ship traveled further into the galaxy, Lyra sat by the viewport, staring at the stars. Ethan kept watch over her, silently vowing to protect her from the dangers that lurked in the universe. He didn't know what lay ahead, but one thing was clear. This small, courageous alien girl had already changed his life, and together, they would face whatever challenges the galaxy had in store. The rescue was over, but the adventure had only begun. And in the quiet hum of the ship, a new partnership was quietly taking root. A human and an alien, bound not by chains, but by trust, respect, and the unspoken promise of shared courage. The ship glided silently through the endless expanse of space. Stars streaked past like diamonds scattered on black velvet. Ethan sat at the control panel, adjusting the navigation system, while Lyra sat by the viewport, her large eyes reflecting the glow of distant suns. She was quiet, her mind still processing everything that had happened, the cages, the fear, the sudden flight to freedom. For the first time since her rescue, Lyra felt something unfamiliar. Safety. It was not complete, because memories of her captivity lingered like shadows, but the fear that had been constant for so long had lessened. She looked at Ethan, trying to understand him. Humans were strange to her, unpredictable yet capable of kindness she had almost forgotten existed. Where are we going?" she asked again, her voice soft, almost hesitant. "Somewhere we can regroup," Ethan replied, keeping his eyes on the instruments. "A safe planet where you can rest and we can plan our next move. The Syndicate won't give up so easily, you know." Lyra nodded, her gaze drifting back to the stars. She was small, yet there was a quiet strength in her presence. She had survived horrors that would have broken many, and Ethan could see it in the way she observed everything. There was intelligence in her movements, a curiosity about the world that reminded him why he had always believed in helping others. Sometimes, the most fragile beings were the strongest inside. After a while, Ethan switched off the main console and moved toward her. "Do you want to learn a bit about the ship?" he asked. "It will help you understand what's going on and how to stay safe." Lyra's eyes lit up slightly. "Yes," she whispered. She leaned forward eagerly, her fear slowly being replaced by curiosity. Ethan guided her through the narrow corridors, showing her the basics, how the air filters worked, where the emergency supplies were stored, and how to operate the communications panel. Lyra absorbed everything quickly, asking questions when she didn't understand. She had an unusual talent for learning, especially with technology. Ethan couldn't help but be impressed. "You're a fast learner," he said, smiling. Lyra tilted her head. "I had to be. In my world, knowledge is survival." Ethan nodded. He realized how much of her courage came not just from her spirit, but from her intelligence. She had survived situations no human could imagine, relying on her mind and instincts. It made him respect her even more. Hours passed, and they finally reached a quiet star system far from Veyron 7. Ethan chose a small, rocky planet with a thin atmosphere and a sparse population. It wasn't luxurious, but it was safe, perfect for hiding for a while. He guided the ship down through narrow canyons and settled it on a flat plateau. "Stay here," Ethan said, as he secured the landing gear. "I'll scan the area for any signs of pursuit." Lyra followed him outside. The wind was thin and cold, but it carried a strange, earthy scent. She looked around cautiously, taking in the jagged rocks and the faint glow of distant vegetation. It was unlike anything she had ever seen on her home planet, yet there was a comfort in the solitude. Ethan crouched to examine some tracks leading toward the plateau. "No one's here yet," he reported. "But we can't stay long. They'll track us eventually. We need to move again soon, maybe tomorrow night when it's darker." Lyra nodded. She was beginning to understand the constant danger they were in. Yet for the first time, she felt a sense of hope. With Ethan, survival seemed possible. That evening, they set up a small camp near the ship. Ethan started a simple meal, using synthesized food and local water. Lyra watched him with curiosity, occasionally helping to arrange the supplies. When the meal was ready, they ate together in silence. It was a small moment of normalcy, but it mattered. After dinner, Ethan turned to her. "I want you to know something, Lyra. You're not alone anymore. I'll protect you, but I also want you to learn to protect yourself. Knowledge and skill are the best weapons out there." Lyra listened, her eyes wide. I want to learn," she said softly. "I want to be strong, not just for me, but for others too." Ethan smiled, seeing determination in her gaze. "Then we'll start tomorrow. You'll learn navigation, survival tactics, and some basic defense skills. Not to fight, but to stay safe. Can you do that?" Lyra nodded firmly. Yes. The next morning, Ethan began her training. He started with navigation, teaching her how to read star maps, understand the ship's controls, and plot safe courses through asteroid fields. Lyra picked it up faster than he expected. Her mind was sharp, and she had an uncanny intuition for patterns in data. After navigation, they moved on to survival tactics. Ethan explained how to find shelter, use tools, and remain undetected. They practiced in the canyons around the plateau, hiding from each other and observing the environment carefully. Lyra was a quick learner, blending her natural agility with the new techniques Ethan taught her. Finally, Ethan introduced her to basic self-defense. He stressed that it was for protection, not aggression. Lyra was cautious at first, but her reflexes were exceptional. She learned to dodge, block, and use her small size to her advantage. Ethan couldn't help but be impressed. This young alien girl, once a captive, was becoming capable of standing on her own. Days passed in this routine. During their breaks, they would talk. Lyra shared fragments of her past, her family, her planet, and the peaceful society she had once known. Ethan listened carefully, never judging, always patient. In return, he told her about his life as a human explorer, the challenges he had faced, and the reason he chose to fight for those who could not fight for themselves. Through these conversations, a bond grew stronger. Lyra began to trust him completely, not out of fear, but out of respect and genuine admiration. She saw in Ethan a rare kind of human courage, the ability to act morally even when it was dangerous. One evening, as they watched the twin suns set behind the plateau, Lyra spoke quietly. "Ethan, why did you risk yourself for me? You could have left me there and gone on with your mission." Ethan looked at her, his eyes thoughtful. "Because no one deserves to be treated like that. You didn't choose your situation, but I chose to help you. That's what humans can do. We can make choices that help others even when it's hard." Lyra's eyes shimmered with a mixture of awe and gratitude. She reached out and touched his arm lightly. It was a gesture of trust, fragile but sincere. Ethan smiled gently, feeling a warmth he hadn't expected. He realized that their partnership was no longer just about survival. It was becoming something deeper, built on mutual respect and understanding. Their training continued, but now it included exercises that highlighted Lyra's natural abilities. She had an unusual skill with technology, able to interface with devices almost instinctively. Ethan noticed this one day while repairing the ship's navigation system. Lyra examined the controls and almost intuitively corrected a malfunction that had baffled him for hours. "You have a gift," Ethan said. Genuinely impressed, Lyra blushed slightly, a gesture he could read despite her alien features. I always liked to learn, she admitted. In my world, curiosity was important. It helped me survive. Ethan nodded, understanding. Well, your gift is going to help us both. The galaxy is full of challenges, and we'll need all the skills we can get. The bond between them grew stronger each day. Lyra began to see Ethan not just as a rescuer, but as a mentor and friend. Ethan, in turn, was amazed by her courage, intelligence, and resilience. He had rescued many beings in his life, but few had left such an impression. Lyra was extraordinary, not because she needed saving, but because of who she was inside. However, danger was never far away. While they trained and bonded, the Syndicate had not forgotten them. Hidden trackers had been placed on the ship and distant patrols were closing in. Ethan remained vigilant, teaching Lyra how to detect signs of pursuit and avoid detection. Every lesson was practical, every moment a preparation for the dangers that would inevitably come. One night, as they slept under the soft hum of the ship's engines, Lyra awoke to a strange feeling. Something was wrong. She quietly woke Ethan, pointing to the viewport where faint lights moved in the distance. Patrol ships, Ethan whispered, recognizing the pattern immediately. They've found us. We need to leave now. Lyra's heart raced, but she did not panic. She had learned from Ethan and she trusted him completely. Together they prepared the ship, activating stealth protocols and plotting a new course to evade their pursuers. As the ship lifted off the plateau and slipped into the shadows of space, Lyra looked at Ethan with quiet determination. I'll stay with you, she said. No matter what, Ethan smiled, touched by her words. I know you will, he replied, and I'm glad. Together we're stronger than they are. As the stars streaked past once again, Ethan and Lyra sailed into the unknown, bound by trust, courage, and the unspoken promise of survival. Their journey was far from over, but one thing was certain. The human and the alien girl had become a team, ready to face whatever dangers the galaxy might throw at them. The quiet of space was deceptive. Ethan knew that the Syndicate would not stop searching for them. Even from the distance of their hidden star system, sensors on the ship detected faint traces of the trackers the captors had left behind. The patrol ships were coming, methodical and relentless, following the faint energy signatures of the small vessel Ethan and Lyra now called home. Lyra stood at the viewport, her arms crossed, eyes focused on the distant blinking lights. She had grown stronger in the weeks since her rescue, learning quickly from Ethan, yet she felt the familiar tension of approaching danger. Her lavender-tinted skin flushed lightly with anticipation, and she shifted her stance instinctively. They're closing in, Ethan said, his voice calm but firm. We need a plan. Running blindly will only get us caught. We have to be smart, Lyra nodded. She had learned to trust his judgment implicitly. Can we fight them? She asked quietly. Ethan considered the question. We can, but not alone. They have numbers, weapons, and experience. But we don't have to fight them head on. We have skills, knowledge, and allies we can reach out to. That's our advantage. He activated the ship's communication console, sending discreet messages to a few trusted contacts across nearby systems. Within hours, a response arrived. A small fleet of independent pilots, mercenaries, and smugglers willing to help. These were people Ethan had aided in past missions, and now the favor would be returned. Lyra observed Ethan coordinating the group, noting his calm decisiveness, even under pressure. She felt admiration growing for him, but also a sense of responsibility. I want to help too, she said. Ethan looked at her, a faint smile forming. And you will. I need you to use your abilities. You've learned so much, Lyra. Your skill with technology, your instincts, they'll be key. The plan was simple in theory, but risky in execution. The Allied fleet would lure the Syndicate ships toward a narrow asteroid field, while Ethan and Lyra's ship would navigate the periphery, using stealth protocols and Lyra's unique skills to disable key systems. They would have only one chance. Mistakes could be deadly. As the patrol ships approached, Ethan and Lyra prepared. Lyra interfaced with the ship's control panel, her fingers moving with precision and confidence. Energy flowed through the circuits, and she tuned the sensors to detect even the smallest incoming signals. Ethan watched her with respect. She had grown from a frightened captive into a capable partner. The moment came. The Syndicate fleet appeared, red lights cutting through the darkness of space. The Allied ships engaged first, drawing fire and weaving through the asteroid field. Explosions lit the void in bursts of orange and white, while smaller ships darted in and out of cover. "Now," Ethan commanded. Lyra's hands flew across the console. She initiated the ship's stealth mode and targeted the energy weapons of the closest Syndicate vessel. A low hum vibrated through the hull as the system she interfaced with faltered. The enemy ship slowed, its shields flickering and its weapons misfired. Ethan piloted the ship through tight spaces, dodging debris and enemy fire. "You're doing great," he encouraged. "Keep it steady." Lyra's focus was absolute. She adjusted the energy flow, rerouted power, and even manipulated the ship's external sensors to create false signals, confusing the Syndicate fleet. She was no longer the frightened alien girl in a cage. She was a force in her own right, vital to their survival. One of the larger enemy ships broke formation, charging toward them. Ethan's heart raced. He knew that the next few moments would determine whether they lived or died. Lyra's eyes glimmered as she anticipated his moves, warning him of an approaching laser blast. He twisted the ship just in time, narrowly avoiding the strike. "Good call," he shouted. Lyra smiled briefly, the thrill of action coursing through her. Her fear was still there, but it was tempered by skill, courage, and the knowledge that Ethan believed in her. She realized that she no longer felt helpless. She had a purpose, a role that mattered. The battle intensified. Explosions rocked space as the Allied fleet continued to engage the Syndicate. Ethan's ship weaved expertly, guided by Lyra's intuitive understanding of the systems. Together they targeted key ships, disabling engines, communication arrays, and weapon systems. Slowly the tide turned. Then came the most dangerous moment. A Syndicate command ship, a massive vessel bristling with weapons, moved to cut off their escape. Ethan realized there was no way to outrun it. "Lyra, I need you to do something risky," he said, his tone serious. Lyra's eyes widened. "What do you want me to do?" "You'll interface directly with their system," Ethan explained. "You can disable their weapons and navigation, but it will put you at risk. Are you ready?" Lyra hesitated, then nodded firmly. "I'm ready." Ethan maneuvered the ship close enough for her to connect. She linked into the enemy ship's systems, her mind racing as she interfaced with technology far more advanced than anything she had seen. Energy surged through the ship, and her alien abilities allowed her to bypass security protocols in ways no human could. "Almost there," she whispered, sweat beading on her forehead. Ethan kept the ship steady, providing verbal support. "You've got this, Lyra. I believe in you." With a final surge of effort, Lyra disabled the command ship's weapons and shut down its engines. It drifted helplessly, its fleet in disarray, and the Syndicate's advantage crumbled. The Allied fleet cheered, their ships regrouping as the remaining Syndicate vessels fled. Ethan exhaled deeply, relief washing over him. Lyra disconnected from the system, her hands trembling slightly from the effort. "You did it," Ethan said, pride in his voice. "You saved us all." Lyra looked at him, a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration in her eyes. We did it together," she corrected softly. Ethan smiled, touched by her humility. "Yes, together." As they drifted away from the battlefield, the stars no longer seemed as hostile. The galaxy was still full of dangers, but now they knew something vital. They could face those dangers as a team. Lyra had proven herself, and Ethan had seen firsthand that courage and intelligence were not limited by species. In the quiet after the battle, Lyra sat beside Ethan in the cockpit. She was tired, but she felt something stronger than fatigue, confidence. For the first time since her capture, she knew she could make a difference. "Ethan," she began hesitantly, I want to stay with you. Not because I have to, but because I want to. You trust me and I trust you." Ethan's eyes softened. "Lyra, I don't just trust you. I respect you. You've earned your place here, not just as my partner, but as my friend. I'm glad you chose to stay." They shared a moment of quiet understanding. Words were not always necessary. The bond between them had been forged in danger, trust, and mutual respect. Lyra no longer saw herself as a rescued captive. She was an equal, a partner, a vital part of the team. Days later, they returned to a hidden outpost to regroup with the Allied fleet. The freed captives from the Syndicate's grasp were safe, thanks in large part to Lyra's courage and quick thinking. She met some of them briefly, offering kind words and comfort. Seeing the gratitude in the eyes of those who had suffered long under oppression filled her with a sense of purpose. Ethan watched her, silently proud. He had rescued her once, but now he realized that she had rescued something else in him. The reminder of why humans must fight for what is right. Courage was not just physical. It was moral, it was compassionate, and it was the choice to act when others could not. That night aboard the quiet ship, Ethan and Lyra sat side by side, looking out at the stars. The galaxy stretched endlessly before them, full of dangers, wonders, and unknown adventures. But for the first time, neither of them felt alone. "Where will we go next?" Lyra asked, curiosity sparkling in her eyes. Ethan smiled, thinking of the countless possibilities. "Wherever the galaxy needs us. We'll help those who cannot help themselves discover new worlds and face whatever challenges come our way. Together." Lyra nodded, a determined smile forming. Together. The stars shimmered around them as the ship accelerated into the void, carrying two allies, two friends, into the unknown. They had faced the Syndicate and survived, but their journey was far from over. The galaxy was vast, full of threats and wonders alike, and together they would meet it all, courageous, united, and unstoppable. The rescue had led to trust, and trust had led to strength. And in that strength, a young alien girl and a human captain had found not just survival but purpose, friendship, and the promise of new beginnings. The galaxy stretched endlessly before Ethan and Lyra, a vast canvas of stars, planets, and mysteries waiting to be explored. After their confrontation with the Syndicate, the two had earned a reputation as skilled and daring travelers. But more importantly, they had forged a bond built on trust, respect, and courage. Their ship glided silently through hyperspace, the soft hum of the engines a constant companion. Lyra sat by the viewport, her eyes scanning the passing stars. She had grown immensely since the day Ethan had rescued her. No longer a frightened captive, she was confident, capable, and filled with determination to help those who could not help themselves. Ethan watched her quietly, reflecting on how far they had come. "Ready to see a new planet?" he asked, smiling. Lyra turned to him, her eyes sparkling. "Yes, I want to see everything. Learn everything." Their next destination was a remote planet on the edge of explored space. It was known for its natural resources and peaceful inhabitants, but rumors suggested that a group of colonists had been cut off from supplies due to pirate activity. Ethan and Lyra had volunteered to deliver aid and assess the situation. As they approached the planet, Lyra observed its surface. Vast forests stretched across continents, with rivers glinting like silver threads. Mountains rose sharply, casting long shadows over the land. The planet was alive, vibrant, and untouched in many ways. She felt a sense of awe she had never experienced before. The landing was smooth, the ship settling in a lush valley near a small settlement. Ethan and Lyra stepped out, breathing in the fresh air. For Lyra, it was a new world full of life, colors, and scents unlike anything on her home planet. "Come on," Ethan said. "Let's check on the colonists." They walked through the settlement, greeted by curious and grateful faces. The colonists had heard rumors of Ethan's bravery and Lyra's remarkable abilities. Some watched in awe as Lyra helped set up temporary energy shields and repaired vital equipment with an ease that astonished even experienced technicians. "You've really changed things," one colonist said to Ethan, gesturing toward Lyra. "We wouldn't have managed without her." Ethan nodded proudly. "She's amazing. I'm glad she's with me." Lyra smiled shyly, but her eyes reflected pride. For the first time, she felt a true sense of belonging, not as someone rescued, but as someone contributing, helping, and making a difference. Over the next few days, Ethan and Lyra worked with the colonists. Lyra's unique abilities proved invaluable. She interfaced with alien machinery, repaired damaged systems, and even helped design new methods to distribute resources efficiently. Each day, her confidence grew, and so did the admiration and trust of those around her. At night, they would sit under the stars, sharing stories. Lyra spoke of her past life, her family, and the peaceful world she had lost. Ethan told her about his adventures, the planets he had seen, and the people he had helped. They laughed, planned, and dreamed together, their bond deepening with each passing day. One evening, as a soft breeze rustled through the trees, Lyra turned to Ethan. "I never thought I would feel this. Free," she said quietly. And I never thought I would have someone I can trust completely. You showed me that humans can be good, kind, and brave. Ethan placed a reassuring hand on hers. You've shown me something too, he replied. Courage, wisdom, and strength don't come from size or species, they come from the heart. You have all of that, Lyra. Their mission on the planet completed successfully, Ethan and Lyra prepared to leave. They had delivered supplies, secured the settlement, and ensured the colonists were safe. But more importantly, they had discovered that together, they could face any challenge. As the ship lifted off, Lyra stood at the viewport, looking at the planet fading beneath them. I think I'm ready for whatever comes next, she said. Ethan smiled. Me too. There's a lot out there, planets to explore, people to help, mysteries to solve, and we'll do it together. The journey continued through uncharted regions where they encountered new civilizations, strange phenomena, and challenges that tested their skills and courage. Lyra's confidence and abilities continued to grow, and Ethan found himself relying on her insights as much as she relied on his experience. In one particularly memorable mission, they arrived at a planet experiencing severe storms that threatened a small village. Lyra quickly analyzed local energy patterns and helped reroute power to critical systems, stabilizing the village infrastructure. The villagers, amazed by her skill, called her a hero. Ethan watched with pride, realizing that Lyra had not only adapted to her new life, she had thrived. Through each adventure, their bond deepened. Lyra no longer felt like a rescued captive. She was a partner, a friend, and a companion, and Ethan, who had once been a lone explorer, found that having Lyra by his side made him stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. One quiet evening, while anchored near a serene moon, they sat together on the ship's observation deck. The moon's surface reflected the light of distant stars, casting a soft glow around them. Do you think we'll ever stop traveling? Lyra asked, leaning slightly against Ethan. Ethan chuckled softly. I don't think so. The galaxy is too big, too full of wonders and people who need help. But as long as we're together, I'm okay with that. Lyra smiled, her eyes shining. I'm glad I stayed with you. Not just because you saved me, because I wanted to, and because I trust you. Ethan's hand found hers again, a simple gesture that spoke volumes. And I trust you. We're a team, Lyra, always. As the ship drifted among the stars, a quiet sense of peace settled over them. Their journey had begun with danger and fear, but it had led to trust, courage, and friendship. They had faced the darkness of the Syndicate, survived impossible challenges, and discovered that together, they could overcome anything. Lyra looked out at the stars, feeling a deep sense of belonging and purpose. She had found not just freedom, but a new life full of possibilities. And beside her, Ethan felt the same. The human who had rescued an alien girl had gained a companion unlike any other, someone whose courage, intelligence, and heart matched his own. The galaxy stretched endlessly, full of adventures waiting to be discovered. Together they would explore new worlds, help those in need, and face the unknown with courage and determination. They were no longer just a rescuer and a rescued, they were partners, friends, and explorers bound by trust and shared purpose. And as the stars shimmered around them, Lyra and Ethan knew one thing for certain: whatever the future held, they would face it together, ready for whatever adventures awaited. Their story was no longer just about rescue. It was about hope, courage, and the extraordinary bond between a human and an alien girl, a bond that would carry them across the galaxy, unbroken, fearless, and unstoppable.